So whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm Michelle. I'm Aowen's aunt, and I'm 52. I'm uh, a photographer. Started out with a hobby, but now I do weddings and things like that. I'm in the middle of writing a book about myself, and I'm a cancer survivor.
That's good.
Okay.
Um,
Edit. No.
no, it's fine.
I was born and raised here in Kentucky. I grew up in Eubank. I graduated in 1992, and I started working in nursing homes and the hospital. I got burnt out real fast because you get attached to the patients, and in a nursing home setting, they don't leave. After a while, it weighs on you, and then you have to step away. So that's what I did. My dad suggested, why don't you drive a truck? You can be your own boss and see the world. And so that's what I did for 7 years. And that's where I met my husband. The very first trip that we ever went on was to Chicago. And I saw it on TV a lot, on shows and movies, but to see it in person, it was a totally different experience. And I thought, this is as good as it gets. I got to see Chicago, but then after that came New York, one after the other. We spent a lot of time in Las Vegas, which was really fun. It was an adventure that someone like me thought that I would never get to have, because I'm from Somerset, Kentucky, and pretty much if you're born here, this is where you are. A favorite thing that I have taken photos of, that would have to be New York City. The bridges and the buildings with the graffiti and the painting. After 9/11 happened, we were in Alabama, and we got a call that they wanted us to help deliver water to Ground Zero. Being there beforehand and seeing the towers and the skyline, you think, man, this is cool. But then 2 days after it happened, the smoke was still rolling into the air and the towers were gone. You see it on TV, you think, oh, that's horrible. But when you see it and are on the street where the dust is, and it's just a surreal experience. You wonder how everybody's going to pick it up and move on. But New York is resilient, and they did. When you see the pictures, you have that emotional response all over again, and it kind of happiness or sad. There's a photo that I had published of Donner Lake, and I always thought it would be so cool to have the big pine trees and the sun glistening off the lake. It took 400 photos, but I finally got the one that I wanted. There's a photo that I had of a medevac helicopter, and I took a picture of the helicopter because it had the lights on and it was really cool. When the photo came out, the background, the sunset, was blood red with this helicopter in the middle, and it was like the sky was on fire. So the whole photo turned out to be one of my favorites, and all I was looking at was the helicopter. That's another way that I de-stress. Like, I'll go out in the yard and just take pictures of flowers on the ground or bees on the flowers, and then I'll come back in and work on it, do the exposure and make sure that the colors come out good and everything. And that puts my concentration on something besides what's possibly going on in my head. I think it was what, let's say 7 years ago, I found a small lump just behind my earlobe on my right ear. You know how when you get sick, or something happens, you think, oh, well, that's nothing. It'll go away. 6 months later, it was bigger, the size of a quarter, and it was not going away. I went to an appointment, and the nurse noticed it and said, what is that? And so I explained to her that it had been there for a while. So my doctor sent me for a CT scan, and then 2 days after that, she said, we don't know for sure, but it looks like a tumor, but we don't know what kind. So they sent me to the Markey Cancer Center in Lexington. They took these little needles, but the needles had little claws on the end, and they stuck them into the tumor, and they took 4 little pieces to test for cancer. What I remember hearing him say was, unfortunately, it is cancer. After that, I don't remember anything else on that appointment. Luckily, my husband was there, and he got the rundown of what it was. It was called mucoepidermoid carcinoma, which is cancer in the saliva glands. At the end of April, I had my surgery, which was really cool because everybody in my family went. The surgery took almost 5 hours. It's kind of gross, but it's kind of cool. They cut my ear completely all the way around the back and up into there, and they lifted it up. because they had to get the nerves out of my face, because by the time that I actually fleshed up and said something was wrong, the cancer was in the nerves in my face, it was in my lymph nodes, it was in the saliva glands, and they had to drill into the bone in your ear behind it to get the rest of the nerve from the face. They didn't count the stitches, it was one continuous stitch from the top of my ear all the way down to right here on my throat, right there. That took maybe 3 weeks before they took the stitching out, and then I was going to have to do the chemo and the radiation. Dentists will not operate or do any kind of work on radiated bone. In order to avoid any kind of problems, they just took my teeth out, which I had dentures, but I don't normally wear them. I didn't think I'd like it, but it's a lot easier without them. Sometimes it's hard to understand, and then I had to have a port put in, and you can still see the tube there. They put it in right here and stitch it into my muscle. It's fed over to, I think, 22 centimeters above the heart, so that when they plug in the chemo, it goes directly into the bloodstream. You don't have to wait for it to go through your veins, it goes directly into your heart. I had 14 rounds of chemo, 6 hours a day, 2 days a week, and my brother Kenny was with me every single treatment. We sat in a room, we got to watch TV, we played trivia, and then during that time also, I was having 33 rounds of radiation, which only took 10 minutes at a time, but it was worse than any of it. It was worse than the word cancer, it was worse than the surgeries, it was worse than any of it because it was the scariest. Everybody said the chemo is going to make you so sick. You're not going to be able, it's going to be like walking through mud. In the first half of the chemo treatments, it was okay. I could eat, everything was okay. But then the back end of the 14 treatments, it progressively got worse as it built up in my system. They tell you it tastes bad and you don't want to eat or drink anything, and that's true. But what they don't tell you is you are starving. You are so hungry, and everything sounds good, but it does not taste good. To me, drinking water was like sewer water. It was horrible. And so I didn't drink anything. And my kidneys shut down, and I had to go to the emergency room, and they had to hook up an IV and give me fluids. I just could not, no matter how hungry or how thirsty I was, I could not. But that was about 6 months of being that sick. And then I had a dream about a potato. I dreamed about a Wendy's baked potato with butter. That's it, just butter. And we went to do one of my scans, and I told my sister-in-law, Wendy, I dreamed about a potato last night. And she said, well, if you think you could eat one, we'll get one. And so on the way home from Lexington, we got 2 baked potatoes. And when I got home, my husband heated one up, and I told him, if I eat this potato and it tastes horrible, I'm going to be so sad, because I love baked potatoes. But it did not taste horrible. It tasted like I dreamed it would taste. They would bring me 10-pound bags of potatoes and real butter, and that's what I ate. My husband would bake potatoes all day, and I ate potato after potato. I still like potatoes, but I don't eat so many now. Progressively, things started getting better. I still can't eat hamburger meat because it still tastes like it did when I had chemo. The actual treatment of radiation was the scariest thing I think I've ever had to do in my whole entire life. They take this mask. When they first give it to you, it's flat. They heat it up, and then they push it down over your face. It is so close that you can't move your mouth, and you can't open your eyes or close them if they're open when they put it on there. And when they lay you on the table, they put it on your face and they snap you into the table so that your head doesn't move. They started out really big, and then by the end of the 32 treatments, it was just a little spot where the tumor had been. There's nothing there but bone with skin over it, which is kind of cool. It took me a long time to be able to touch it because it just feels weird. Today, everything is clear. My cancer scans are clear, but I am completely numb from my eyebrow down to this area, all the way into that circle. I can't feel anything. I can't close my eyelid on my own. I have to take it closed at night. I figure that's a small price to pay for still being alive.